So the one thing I would say is no matter what the season is, understand that your marriage is its own season. It is its own entity which you have to maintain.
Your blended family has a 100% chance of success when you do it God's way.
We are Blended Kingdom Families, and we want to provide biblical resources to heal and restore families with a message of hope for the next generation.
Let's get after it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the BKF podcast, where we are finalizing and finishing our series on beginning to blend. This is part four. So if you've missed the first three, go back, check them out. They're not very long. You can get a ton of information that way. And if you haven't already, please take an opportunity, like, share, comment, send us your feedback. You can email us at info@blendedkingdomfamilies.com. We would love to hear from you. But today, we're going to be diving into the topic of keeping your marriage a priority. And in blended families, let me tell you, that is one of the biggest things that we see. The biggest obstacles as we see is when people get married, all of a sudden, all the priorities of life come above the marriage. The kids, the job, the finances, sometimes even the ex-spouse. They're coming to the forefront, and our marriage is getting pushed down to the bottom.
Yeah, you guys, and these are all things that we want to, we want to bring all of this to light as we're beginning to blend. So we talked about dating, we talked about engagement, we talked about right when, you just got married and you're blending your family. And now, this is like you've been married, you're settling in, and, things maybe are starting to get out of line. Your priorities are getting out of line. So maybe your relationship with Christ has fallen to the side. You're not keeping up with your spiritual health. Maybe it's that, now that you're all blending, like your children are having a really hard time, and because they're having a hard time, maybe you're having some parent guilt, and because you're having that parent guilt, you're now putting them above your spouse and not prioritizing them properly. And this is starting to cause disunity and a wedge in your blended family. And we see this a lot in blended and newly blended families, because that honeymoon period, so to speak, has just you're kind of out of that, right? And you're living life, and it's getting nitty gritty. Maybe you're having issues with your ex-spouse, and, your children are not getting along, or you and your stepchild are not getting along. So you're starting to feel that. You're starting to feel the little, things that kind of pop up with blended families, and, now priorities are out of whack. So what do you do?
Well, I think first, understand with kids, you are in seasons.
Yes.
So with every season of a particular child or children of a group, there are going to be challenges. Sometimes the seasons are going to be really difficult. Sometimes the seasons may be a little bit easier. I know if you have babies, those are some difficult seasons. Those are some non-sleep seasons. But if you have teenagers, that's a whole different season. So the one thing I would say is no matter what the season is, understand that your marriage is its own season. It is its own entity which you have to maintain. You have to make sure that you're paying attention to it. And so I'm not saying don't pay attention to your kids. I'm not saying don't give them the love and the time and everything, but you have to make sure that you're keeping the priorities of marriage, which is Christ, your marriage, then your children, then your job, then everything else. So make sure that you're staying in line with that first. So the first thing I would say is, one, maintaining and keeping your marriage a priority is, number one, find a good church home. So being in that regular community of believers, being in that regular community of getting filled with the Holy Spirit, getting filled with knowledge, giving your children a chance to go and be in that environment, that is the best step. One of the first things that I ask Christians who come for counseling or having problems is what church do you go to and how often are you there? Because that is a great barometer for how we feel.
Yeah. And I would also say prayer life too. Like, what does your prayer life look like? I think, when it comes to, after you're in this process, you've already blended and all of this stuff is coming up, and maybe you're like, my spouse is dead set on, defending their children, and they aren't wanting to put the marriage first. We get a lot of people who are in that situation. You guys, this is where outside help can come into play. And I love that you said getting involved at the church. You guys, there's a lot of churches that have mentorship programs where you have older, wiser couples who have been through the thick of it and who are here to offer, their wisdom and their knowledge and their time to help you and your spouse walk through that. if you can find an older couple to connect with and just hold you accountable, I think sometimes when we're in those seasons where we're in the thick of it and we're in those hot fire seasons or we're in the wilderness season, we can be deceived in our, it's like we're not seeing clearly and we're not seeing everything right. But when you bring in that outside help, that community, those, wise counselor or, seeing a licensed counselor, people can see things that you're not seeing. They can hear you say things that you don't realize you're saying and offer a perspective that can give clarity to the situation that you're in. And so, I just want to say that if you're one of those spouses, you've blended your family and things are not going well, your marriage is not the top one priority. Mm-hmm. If you and your spouse can either get in with a licensed professional counselor or mentorship or maybe a pastoral counselor at the church, you guys, that it can be the best thing that you can do in this season because it can help you guys walk through that.
Yeah. And the next thing I would suggest, I'm going to call it the 2-door analogy. There are 2 doors that are just really important to understand. The first door is your bedroom door. And sometimes that is the time, it is time to close the bedroom door and where there are no kids. Yeah. And that's where mom and dad have their time, whether that is to pray, for intimacy, just to talk. Yeah. It is, sometimes you just need that space. Yeah. So that's the first door. The second door is the front door. And sometimes you and mom and dad need to walk out the front door, close it, and get on a date night.
Yeah, that's
They
good.
just need to get away, spend some time, make sure that you are continually dating your spouse. Mm-hmm. You're making them priority. Again, chaos is going to happen in life. Yeah. Kids are going to be chaotic. Yeah. They're going to need things. They're going to need your time, your effort, your energy. They're going to need it all. And in blended families, it's even more. There are times when your ex-spouse may be needing something from you, but you need to make sure that you're giving your best to your spouse. Yeah. And that involves sometimes just closing those 2 doors and getting out there one-on-one.
Oh, that's so good. And I would say to you guys, if everything feels out of line, it's usually because your spiritual life is out of line.
100%.
It's usually because you're not in daily communion with the Lord or in his presence, or maybe you haven't been reading the word as much as you have been. I think that and we talk about this a lot, is that whenever we are in daily communication with the Father and we are in his presence and we are receiving his wisdom and his knowledge that we ask for, that is going to spill into our marriage and it's going to overflow then into our blended family. So if you see that things are out of whack, I would take a good hard look at what your faith walk is right now. And are you truly putting Christ first? Because when we're submissive to him, then our spouse can be submissive to us. And I don't mean in a way that's like, you do what I tell you to do, but I mean in a way that it's honoring your spouse and it's honoring your marriage. And that goes wives to husband and husbands to wives.
I was just thinking about the times when sometimes you need to do this.
Yeah, that does happen.
Actually, they don't say, wives don't ever say, they just say, don't you think we should do this? And they say we, that really just means you. Like, don't you think we should take out the trash?
I do the we all the time.
And I have to ask her, I'm like, do you mean we or do you mean me?
I mean you.
It means me. Guys, again, all of these things we're telling you and the things that we try to practice ourselves. I mean, this is, we're in this with you. We are a blended family. We are married almost 10 years. We have been through counseling. Oh, yeah. We have understood the importance of how to have an argument, how to figure out a way to make it back together. Yeah. And put our pride to the side, put my ego to the side. Yep. And figure out a way, because we want a marriage and you want a marriage that's going to last a lifetime.
Absolutely.
And God designed it for us. Yeah. And it's us that tend to get in the way.
Absolutely.
So that's why we practice and talk so much about having Christ at the center, having your marriage be a priority, having your kids be the next priority, because we know in blended families, it is just that tough.
Well, and I think when you're beginning to blend, when you set that precedence from the beginning with your children and your stepchildren, it creates less opportunity, one, for manipulation, for disunity, and for things to go awry. They probably won't like it. Like, just being honest, they probably won't like it. And they may even run to the other parent's house and be like, Dad's doing this, my stepmom's not doing this, or my mom's doing this. I don't like my stepdad. And you know what, you guys, that is okay, because the best gift that you can give your children and your stepchildren is the gift of a godly, healthy marriage. And you know what? They may not like it in the moment that you're putting one another first, but it will pay dividends years down the road when they can see that you guys put one another first and they had that great model of a marriage to then, as they go into relationships and they go into the marriage, they can reflect upon and look back and say, you know what? My mom and stepdad, or my dad and my stepmom did this, and this was the best thing that they could do. I remember when my parents did it. I didn't want to share my mom, and I didn't like it. But looking back now, my parents have been married almost 30 years. And and I appreciate that they did that and they made that a priority.
Yeah, and the one thing I want to bring up, one more example of a challenge that we hear a lot of is that a lot of times when you're getting married, maybe you're newly married, you've been married for a little while, and this allegiance to your children and always keeping them as our first priority. I want to say this: your children are not a priority,
right?
And I think a lot of people hear what we say and they're like, well, does that mean that we just don't, our children don't matter? No, and they matter everything.
Yeah.
Well, what we're saying is the priorities come when you make sure that you're budgeting time for your spouse. Make sure that you've budgeted that time to be in the local church.
Yeah.
Make sure that you've budgeted that time for a date night, and that you don't miss that.
Yeah.
And that you prioritize that in your week. Making sure that we talk a lot about, we have our meetings once a week, our marriage meeting and our business meeting, where we talk about schedules, and then we talk about our marriage. We just make that a priority of time. We also make a priority for our kids.
Yeah.
We make that time for them. We make sure that we're engaged with them. We make sure that we are going to their sporting events. We make sure that everybody's involved there. So don't look at this as we say our priorities in marriage and think, well, my children should be number one. Well, they should also be a priority.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that you shouldn't put them, and there we've seen ways that people put their children as the first priority. Mm-hmm. Whether that's in their finances or in their time or in the way that they treat, the children treat the other spouse.
Yep.
Those are the things that we don't want to get out of line.
Yeah.
So guys, wherever you are in this process, please know that we are with you and we are for you and we are praying for you. If you want additional information on preparing to blend, first of all, we have a lot of podcasts that are out there that we talk about this. Second, we released a book last year called Blended and Redeemed, the go-to field guide for the modern step family. It is a wonderful, wonderful resource. It's on Amazon. You can go grab that. If you've already grabbed that, please leave us a review because we love reviews. Those are fun. But we're with you. We're for you. And we hope that this has helped in this process. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Be blessed in all that you do.
Hey guys, so glad you were here with us today, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And you can find more resources from Blended Kingdom Families at blendedkingdomfamilies.com. Join us again next time as we hang out with more amazing podcast guests. And remember, nothing will be impossible with God.